Hello friends, and welcome back to the Christmas special. This is episode number 7 out of 12. Today, we'll make some Danish cardamom twists. And I'm sure they have variation of this all across Scandinavia, but we'll go with Denmark this year. If you like cardamom and cinnamon, this will definitely be one for you. But if you are more into apples, check the previous episode where we made the Russian Christmas bread. But for now, let's get on with the Danish cinnamon twists. And as always, you'll find a full recipe with all the details down in the description box. So first up, let's see what equipment we need. We need a tray with some non-stick paper, a bowl, scales, a dough scraper, a temperature probe, a brush, and a little spatula. And you'll definitely need a rolling pin. Now on to the ingredients. We need some strong white bread flour, milk, yeast, salt, sugar, some soft butter. For the filling, you'll need some more soft butter, sugar, cinnamon, cardamom. Then for the topping, you'll need some pistachios, sugar nibs, and an egg yolk mixed with a teaspoon of milk. That'll be the glaze. And also a syrup made out of sugar and water, which we'll brush the buns with when they come out of the oven. First up, let's make the filling. It's quite simple. In a small bowl, add your sugar, the cinnamon, the cardamom, and give it all a good mix. Then in comes the butter, and beat it all together. This will be best done on a mixer. You just beat it until it's nice and fluffy, but you can do it by hand, as you can see I'm doing it here. Not everyone has a mixer, so we're keeping it accessible. Now before we start, I know my kitchen is around 24 degrees Celsius, so I want milk to be around 6. Now get the bowl, add the milk, then in with the yeast, salt, sugar, then grab a spatula and give it all a good mix. You want to dissolve the sugar crystals and hydrate the yeast. Now comes the flour. After you added the flour, grab your dough scraper and start mixing. You want to mix this to one cohesive mass whilst it's still in the bowl to avoid making a mess on your table. And if the scraper is not doing the job, continue on by hand. And once you don't see any more dry flour, tip the dough out on the table. We can start kneading it. This dough is not very sticky, so we'll use a regular kneading method. What I like to do is press down and forwards with the heel of my right hand, and then using the fingers of my left hand, I fold the piece of dough under the heel of my right hand. Then I turn and repeat. Once you've done this a few times, the motion will become fluent. This part will not take too long. You want to knead the dough for around 3 minutes. We want to develop some gluten before we start adding the butter. Now stretch the dough out and slap the butter right on top of it. This is the messy part, but don't worry, it's a necessary evil. We need to destroy it before we can rebuild it. So mash up the butter and the dough, squeeze it, tear it, pull it, do whatever you have to do. And after around 30 seconds, you can keep kneading it, just as you did before. And it might be a little bit too sticky, so what you can do is get your scraper, scrape it all together, and switch up the kneading method. We can try and do a stretch and fold. Performing stretch and fold is quite easy. Pick the dough up, stretch it against the table, and fold it forwards, and always pick it up by the side. You want to keep doing this for another 3 to 4 minutes, and the dough will become smoother and less sticky as you move along. And as you can see, it's nice and smooth. We can roll it into a ball and start fermenting. So place it in your bowl, and make sure to take the temperature. 26 to 27 degrees Celsius is what we are looking for. If it's warmer, you need to cut down fermentation time. If it's cooler, you need to extend it. I'm going to cover it up and leave it for 1 hour. It will start puffing up a little bit during that time. But after the first proof, we need to give it a fold. Folding benefits the dough in a number of ways. You'll degas it, we will create extra layers in the structure, and also equalize the temperature in the dough. To perform a fold is quite easy. Place the dough out on your table, smooth side pointing down, flatten it out, then fold the edge over the middle, going around in a circle until you reach the point where you started. Then flip the dough smooth side up again, tighten it against the table, pinch the seam together at the bottom, and get it back into the bowl, cover it up, and leave it to ferment for 1 more hour. Now you should really start seeing it puff up. And after the 2 hours of proofing, we can start rolling it. This process is quite simple. I like the effect it creates. You'll see what I mean in a minute. Now get a little bit of flour, make sure you dust your surface and your dough, and start flattening it out. I always like to start off by hand and then continue on with a rolling pin. This dough is quite soft and stretchy, so it'll be quite easy to roll out. And you do want to roll it to a massive rectangle. We will have to fold this into 3, so we'll end up with quite a relatively small piece of dough at the end. Now make sure everything's nice and square. Start spreading on the filling. You want an even layer all over the dough. And a spatula like this will really come in handy for achieving it. Now don't rush this, just spread it gently, don't press too hard. Take your time. This is quite therapeutic actually, spreading the filling out. So once you've covered your dough nicely, the next step is to divide it into 3. And I like to draw a couple of lines to see where to fold. So now pick up one side and fold it over the middle. Try to keep it as square as possible. This dough is quite stretchy. Don't worry if it's not perfectly straight, it's not the end of the world. Now grab the other side and fold that over. And now you see what I mean. We had this massive piece of dough, but it ended up quite small. You can actually roll it out a little bit using a rolling pin, but don't squeeze too hard, otherwise the filling will pop out the sides. Right, so turn your dough horizontally and using your scraper, divide it into 6 equal pieces. And then you can take each piece and stretch it out a little bit more, so it's nice and long. And the next thing we need to do is take the scraper once again and cut each dough piece into 2, leaving the top part connected. And now comes the fun part. I really like this process. So what you need to do is pick your dough up and twist those 2 loose ends around each other, and then repeat with the rest. And you could actually bake them like this. But there's one more thing we need to do to turn them into the twists. And yeah, you guessed it, we need to twist them one more time. But as you are twisting, make sure you keep rolling it. Watch my hands, alright? Yeah, there's no point listening to the instructions when doing this. Just watch my hands and repeat. Always tuck the end piece underneath so it doesn't unravel. Then continue on with the rest. If you messed up the first one, you still got 5 to practice on. Now they're ready for the final fermentation. Arrange them on a tray with some non-stick paper. We can start preheating our oven. These will bake at around 160 degrees Celsius with the fan on. Cover them up and we'll leave them for at least 1 to 1.5 hours. And look at that, they are puffing up beautifully. Now there's a couple final touches before they go in the oven. We're going to brush them with the egg glaze that we made earlier, which consists of 1 egg yolk and a teaspoon of milk. This will give them a beautiful golden brown crust, and this glaze can be used for any bread. Now get your crushed pistachios and sprinkle them all over. And last but not least, some sugar nibs. Now let's get these bad boys in the oven. They should not take more than 30 minutes. And once they are puffed up and beautifully golden brown all over, they're done. An extra final touch that you can do to make them really shiny is to glaze them with sugar syrup. This is 20 grams of sugar dissolved in 10 grams of water. Brush it all over, and that's your Danish cardamom twists. These are definitely one of my favorites. I know I've probably said this 7 times by now, but it's true. I really encourage you trying to make these. And don't try, just make them. They're awesome. They're quite easy to make. And as always, if you have any questions or suggestions, write them down in comments. Check out my Christmas playlist. I have 12 different breads from 12 different countries. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.